With a history stretching back over 500,000 years, the people of Bajor created civilizations which embraced science, philosophy, and art, creating a rich and unique culture before humans had even learned to speak. In time, their people were contacted by mysterious, non-corporeal aliens who seemed to have a connection to this planet and population. Describing themselves as of Bajor, they came to be worshipped as gods and granted visions to certain Bajorans through a device called the Orb of the Prophets, the first of which was given to their people roughly 30,000 years before the founding of the 24th century Bajoran Republic. Yet there was a dark side to their growing religion, as some of these prophets rebelled against the will of the others and were exiled from their dimension, which could only be accessed through a wormhole located near Bajor. These fallen gods were known as pah-wraiths and represented cruelty and injustice, the evil adversaries to the venerated prophets. As part of the continuing struggle between them, both a prophet and pah-wraith were entombed in a stone tablet to await the day they would be released by the emissary and would finish their battle. Over thousands of years, 8 more orbs were given to the Bajorans, becoming highly prized religious artifacts, though the visions they granted were often vague and open to interpretation. Through their interactions with the Orb of Prophecy and Change, religious leaders began to write about their experiences, creating prophecies like those concerning the future emissary of the prophets. Although this religion seemed to successfully spread throughout the planet, making their shared spirituality a core feature of Bajoran culture and civilization, their people remained politically divided, developing into factions which competed with one another and sometimes went to war. By the 16th century, Bajoran technology had developed to the point where they could launch light ships into space, designed for short-range travel. However, on one occasion, a ship was transported to Cardassia Prime, 5 light-years away, when it made contact with tachyon eddies that created a warp-style jump through space. Unfortunately, the voyage did heavy damage to the ship, causing it to crash land on the planet, and while this was a noteworthy historical landmark for the Bajorans, the later Cardassian government denied these early flights ever took place until the 24th century, when Benjamin Sisko and his son proved the journey was possible, forcing them to admit the truth. By the 22nd century, Bajoran culture had developed to embrace a caste system, whereby an individual's purpose in life was determined by the caste, or Dejara, into which they were born, such as the Tenari, who were deemed to be lower in the social order than the Ivala, who were artists and sculptors. During this century, the Bajorans would inadvertently discover the Temple of the Prophets, where their gods resided, as their ships started to pass by the location of the wormhole. When the religious leader Kai Taluno saw the great portal open up before him, he described it as his ship nearly being swallowed by the heavens. Later, the great poet Akoram Lan also encountered the wormhole when his ship became trapped within, living in the realm of the prophets for 200 years before he was released back into the Alpha Quadrant. In 2279, Bajor took a great step towards bringing peace to their planet when the factions of Paku and Navot signed a treaty to establish borders. However, nothing would work to unite the Bajoran people more than the transformation that occurred in the 24th century when their planet was occupied and annexed by a greater military power. Although the Bajorans had an ancient culture and were a relatively advanced species, establishing colonies on other planets like Golana, the Cardassian Union came to see them as primitive and backwards, as their own technology was roughly a century more advanced. And so in 2319, the Cardassian military established a presence on their planet, offering to help modernize their society in exchange for access to the planet's abundant natural resources. The Bajorans, seeing how powerful these aliens were, did not originally offer much resistance, allowing for the Cardassian Union to formally annex the planet in 2328. However, over the next 40 years, the Cardassians proved to be ruthless overlords, mocking the primitive religious beliefs of the local population while using them as forced labor to steal their natural resources. Many came to see them as cruel oppressors, committing various atrocities like indiscriminate killings, performing cruel medical experiments on Bajoran subjects, and exploiting comfort women who were forced to be intimate with Cardassian officers. Although some Bajorans went along with the new order, forming a government which served as puppets to the Cardassians, others were unwilling to accept subjugation, creating a rebel movement of decentralized terrorist cells, using guerrilla tactics to kill their oppressors as well as collaborators. Many officials chose to respond harshly to these attacks. However, this approach only served to entice the Bajorans further into rebellion, and so one of their officers chose to employ a different tactic, hoping that a more gentle hand would quell the unrest. For 5 years, the prefect of Bajor, Gul Dukat, oversaw the construction of Terok Nor, an ore processing facility orbiting above their planet, which became the central seat of authority for the Cardassian commander. From there, Dukat, who arrogantly considered the Bajorans his children, made new laws he hoped would endear him to the people, cutting labor camp output quotas by 50%, abolishing child labor, and improving medical care and food rations. As a result, there was a 20% drop in labor camp death rates. However, this in no way appeased the rebels, who demanded their complete withdrawal from the planet, and so only a month after Dukat took command, they targeted and destroyed an orbital dry dock, killing 200 Cardassians. After that, the Resistance forces attempted to assassinate Dukat on 5 separate occasions, and so seeing no reward for his acts of compassion, Dukat came to loathe the Bajorans, reversing his policies to become even more cruel and oppressive. Nevertheless, by 2369, the Bajorans had done so much damage and caused such chaos among the occupation army, the Cardassians withdrew from the conflict, granting victory to Bajor. Having underwent such a drastic transformation during this century, the Bajoran people were no longer comfortable with a caste system and remaining politically divided, and so the planet united under a provisional Bajoran government, attempting to create a modern, advanced civilization that could join the galactic community around them. To aid them in this cause, they befriended the United Federation of Planets in the hopes they might one day be considered for membership in the Federation. However, despite their good intentions, the political situation on Bajor remained volatile for some time, as many of their people came to distrust alien powers, creating a xenophobic anti-alien movement called the Circle, which attempted a coup against the government, only a year after the end of the occupation. However, the attempt failed, and by 2371, their situation had begun to stabilize, even taking a step towards normalizing relations between Bajor and Cardassia, with the signing of a treaty that recognized Bajor's sovereignty. Although some continued to distrust alien powers, their relationship with the Federation grew stronger, due in large part to the Bajoran belief that Commander Benjamin Sisko, the Federation officer assigned to Deep Space Nine, was the long-awaited emissary of the Prophets. Although it was a role he did not want, he soon came to accept the position after receiving a number of visions which made it clear he had a role to play in the future of Bajor. As a result, in 2373, when the Bajoran Republic was ready to formally join the Federation, they pulled out of the agreement at the last moment on the advice of Ben Sisko, who had been warned through a vision that Bajor must stand alone if it was to survive. Perhaps proving the wisdom of this decision, the Alpha Quadrant was soon invaded by the Dominion of the Gamma Quadrant, who moved their forces through the Bajoran wormhole and quickly allied with the Cardassian Union. Yet because Bajor had remained independent, they were able to sign a non-aggression treaty and largely stayed out of the fighting that erupted throughout the quadrant. Although the Dominion made fast advances, capturing Deep Space Nine and taking possession of the wormhole, the Federation and Klingon Alliance soon took it back, thanks to the intervention of the Prophets, who, at the request of Sisko, caused an entire armada of Dominion ships to disappear inside the wormhole, making them unable to bring reinforcements into the Alpha Quadrant. Soon the Romulans joined the Alliance, and in time they gained victory over the invading forces, signing the Treaty of Bajor in 2375. After their victory, the role of the emissary was finally coming to a close, with Sisko journeying to the fire caves of Bajor to confront Dukat, who was now in league with the pah-wraiths. After a brief battle, Sisko saw only one way to end it, and grabbed Dukat, throwing both of them and the sacred book of Kosta Mojin into the fire pit, sacrificing himself to seal them away forever. No longer facing threats from the Dominion, Cardassians, or pah-wraiths, Bajor was now in a position to thrive and prosper without interference, continuing to worship and be guided by the prophets of the Celestial Temple. Do your shopping on Amazon? Then why not use the link in the description box below to either the Canadian, American, or UK Amazon sites, where you support the channel with every purchase at no extra cost to you. So if you do your shopping on Amazon anyway, why not use the link below and help support CivilizationEx? A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx, like X Mongom, Tio the Iron Banker, Fred Heartless, and Zach of All Trades Trials. If you would like to help CivilizationEx, click on the Patreon link, and please be sure to like and subscribe, and click on the links to see more.